Hello everyone, it's Kelly with Women for One, and I am honored on this beautiful February day to be speaking with Dr. Mai Haley. Mai is known for many things, and I'm really looking forward to talking to her about some of the new projects she's done and some of the wisdom that she's gained throughout her lifetime of a multitude of experiences. So welcome, Mai. I'm really excited to be speaking with you.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I appreciate being here.
Absolutely. I want to first start with giving everyone in our community a little background on who you are. I was born in the 60s, so I definitely have heard of you and your late husband, Alex Haley. I was a huge fan of Roots, the movie, and just over the top excited to actually be speaking with you because I learned so much. I grew up in the South, and I learned so much from that book and that movie, and I just can't wait to talk to you about that for a few minutes and then what else you're doing.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So Dr. Haley, she grew up in West Virginia, and then she moved to Ohio, and while finishing her doctoral program in communications and African American studies at Ohio State, she was inspired by this speech delivered on campus by Alex Haley, writer and author of the autobiography of Malcolm X. And after achieving her goal, which is a wonderful goal of achieving a PhD, she set out on her next challenge to work with that author, Alex Haley. So because Alex was so impressed by Dr. Haley, Mai's talent and drive, she assisted him in writing the remaining 2/3 of the book that was years overdue to his publisher. And within a matter of months, they completed the now epic book and work, Roots, the Saga of an American Family. This literary work catapulted Alex Haley to international fame. And Mai and Alex married in 1977, and over the years she continued to collaborate on many of his projects, including the miniseries Roots, The Next Generation, and Palmerstown. That's just amazing. So after Alex's death, Dr. Haley immersed herself in her own writing pieces, which now amount to several books that will soon be published together with stage plays and screenplays for feature film. I'm really excited to be talking with her today about The Treason of Mary Levasseur. Levasseur?
Levasseur.
Right. It's the first of Mai's literary works, and it's a historical fiction based on the acts of a little-known heroine that changed the course of the Civil War. This great work will also be followed by 5 more in the Treason series. So Dr. Haley, or Mai as she likes to be called, lives and works in Vegas, where she focuses on her writing, her lifelong love, and I am just so excited to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's mutual.
Yes. So what I love about what you're doing is your writing and your sharing and your storytelling, and that's what we do at Women for One. So my first question really is, what led you to a life of sharing your wisdom? Can you give us a few tidbits of who you are personally and what inspired you to become the woman you are?
Wow, that's a big question. It's a big one, but when you ask me that, one of the first things that pops into my head is my relationship with my beloved grandmother, and her name was Miss Julia Dickerson. And grandmother was one of the many women from our street who were part of the Day Workers Brigade, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so grandmother, after working all day, would come home and, clean her house and cook and all that. And then after all that was done and settled in, she'd pull up her rocking chair next to the mock fireplace, where there was a wide mantle. On one end was the Jesus Save sign, and the other was the funeral home's calendar,
Right.
And, and she would put me on her lap, and she would always have a book, because she would only work for white people who had children my age. So she would have some sort of guideline for what the white kids were doing, so she could repeat that with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so she would I did not know that grandmother couldn't read.
Oh, wow.
She had done a third grade education at, the old mountain, single room schoolhouse way up in the mountains in the coal fields, which amounted to practically nothing at all. But she would turn the pages, and little did I know, she had memorized the stories. She had gotten the white children to tell her the stories, and she had memorized them. And so she would turn the pages and tell me the stories. But what this woman did, this simple country woman did, was she would take my little hand and put it to her throat, so that as she told me these stories, I could feel the power of words.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. And in our community, it would be like of a Saturday that, it would be kind of early when something like this was happening, that the kids, and we just kind of, traveling, doing our thing, whatever we're doing, playing hide and seek or whatever we're doing, reading Archie comic books or something. But we could feel a kind of electricity in the air. Mm-hmm. Grandmother was suddenly cooking a lot. Mama was making hot dog sauce. Mm-hmm. Miss Pauline was too busy to talk to you. Miss Inez had, was back in there baking. I mean, things were going on, and then about the middle of the day, here comes Caphead, because he's the one who had the truck, and there were all these logs in the back of the truck, and the men would take the logs out of the back, and there was a little elbow of street that as you turned off our street, it was kind of midway our street, and it was a big space where people could congregate, and they would take the logs and build a circle with the logs, and then they would set up these tables all along the sides, make a kind of aisle on either side, and the women would be bringing food, and people would be coming from all over the holler, from uptown, from downtown, from St. Albans, just be coming, and then toward early evening, as people were eating, and kids still buzzing around and whatnot, but you always got an ear to kind of what adults were saying, and they would be talking about their day, or they would be talking about their experiences off the street. And so we were getting an education about what life was like through their stories of the outside world.
Right.
Because our little community was just one street. It went the length of the highway, from the highway to the railroad track. That was it. That was our street. But it was a womb of a community. And all these people now have come. And then now, as the evening is deepening, and you've got kind of purple, red, mauve sky over the mountains, and the railroad train has passed by a couple of times and tooted, as the engineers always said hello to us that way. And the people were continuing with their stories, and then they would start telling stories of way back when. And so now we're getting a history lesson as they're telling about these stories of back then. And all the old gray hairs would have wonderful stories about, whatever it was. Sometimes it would be as simple as how to make a mustard plaster. or it might be something about one of their relatives escaping from slavery or something like that they had heard about through the family stories. And now all of us wide-eyed youngsters would begin to settle around our elders. And, the old folks would, take you to the back of the skirt and pull it through your legs, sort of like you're making a pair of pants, and you got a lap. And so grandmother would do that, and I would lay my head in her lap
Oh.
And so now it's very, very intimate. And the gray hairs would start humming, and they would start singing a kind of music that you cannot play an instrument to. It's called meter singing, and it came out of slavery. But I tell you, if you hear it, or when you hear it, it strikes you to the marrow of your bones, because it lets you know how completely connected you are with each other. Not just black people to black people,
right,
but whoever is there. I mean, because it's something that connects with the heartbeat, you know?
Wow.
And with women, it hits you in that lower gut, you know, where life is given, and you know it to your soul. And then after that, they would start with singing hymns or something. And I know old Miss Mose, with her warm, run-over shoes, would start the stomp. And they'd be sitting there. Now, just imagine all these gray hairs and middle-aged people, you know, sitting around this bonfire now, you know, where the kids are toasting the marshmallows or roasting their hot dogs on a coat hanger, you know, and then settling back in the laps and, you know, and listening to the music. But now see these old work boots, these old run-over white shoes, these old run-over Buster Browns, you know, and they're just stomping, and they're marching up the King's Highway, and they just be marching, you know.
Wow.
And it would turn into a strut and a stomp, and, you know, somebody would get so electrified by it that you'd see one of these women, you know, who had arthritis and couldn't hardly move, and suddenly she's dancing around the fire like she's 13. You know?
Yeah.
And she's marching to Zion, marching up the King's Highway, you know. And then as it would be time to close out, because people had to, you know, some people had come from great distances and they had to get back home. Grandmother would start up a song. Grandmother's voice was deep, deep baritone, and she would start up a song called "Thank You, Lord, Thank You, Lord, Oh Lord, Thank You, Lord." And she would just be stroking my head as if she was thanking God for me, her granddaughter. And then when it was all over and people were slowly dispersing, you know, and all the hugs and the carrying on, Grandmother would allow Calfhead, big as he was, to carry me down the road to home. And then when we got to my bedroom, Grandmother would put my pajamas on, and then she would take my hands into her gnarled hands, this woman who did day work every single day of her life, and she would start, "Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep." And I would be just about out on my feet, and I don't know if we ever finished that prayer, because I would be gone. But it was out of that tradition that came me as a storyteller.
Wow, that's so beautiful. And you just told the story of your storytelling evolution and created such a vision and a warmth around, I could see it. You know, I could see it while you were speaking, and
feel it.
I felt it, I saw it, it was kinesthetic, it was visual, the sounds, I mean, and it just sounded like, I jotted down a few things you said, because I love when you said a womb of a community, like to really feel nurtured in that community and feel safe and protected. And the other thing I heard you say that I really believe in, our words are so powerful, and to be able to feel them on your grandmother's throat with your hand.
Oh my God! You know what happened? There was a white doctor who came from New York. It was a Jewish doctor. He came, and he was the one who helped open up, you know, opportunities for blacks not only to be treated at the hospital, but to be able to work there, because it was like walking distance from our little street. But he and Grandmother, I don't know how it happened, but he and Grandmother developed this very, very close friendship. as the hospital was being built, he would come over almost every day because he loved Grandmother's kitchen table. I mean, he loved everything she cooked. And he was there every day. But what was happening was he was learning from her indigenous medicine, and she was learning from him traditional and conventional medicine.
Wow.
And so as Grandmother was giving him an endorsement, by being there and being her friend, that he began to practice medicine there on the front porch. People would come who would not normally be able to see a doctor, would come and be able to be treated, by Dr. Ekman right there on the front porch. Well, since Grandmother was now working for white people who had children my age, she learned about something called flashcards. You're probably too young to remember flashcards.
Oh, no, I remember flashcards, yeah.
Well, and she would tell Dr. Ekman, okay, she wanted flashcards for me. Okay, so next time he comes, he's got flashcards. He's got every kind of flashcard you can imagine. ABCs, math, whatever it is, flashcard. Okay, and then Grandmother heard about something else that was a really big deal, and that was a blackboard in chalk. She wanted a big one. So here come Cathead in the truck with the blackboard that Dr. Ekman had seen to, that he bought and had delivered to Grandmother's house. But now, when the preacher announced that Dr. Ekman had sent a big gift down in a great big box, people poured out of Sunday service over to Grandmother's house. They came from far and near because they knew that it was something special that Miss Julia had asked for. And when Grandmother opened the box, lo and behold, inside was something called a dictionary. And people wanted to just touch it because it had all these words in there. And these were words that Miss Julia was going to see to, that her granddaughter wrote on the blackboard and learned the meaning of these words so that she could tell stories about herself and where she came from and the history of her people.
Well,
and things like that.
That's amazing. And you were talking about your grandmother a lot and how she was such a mentor. And you have this incredible quote that you shared with me that I want to speak about, and it sounds like your grandmother was a torchbearer. To be a torchbearer within your community, lead by example and set such a standard of excellence that those around you rise up to join you. I just love this quote. Can you tell me a bit why it's so important to do this and how we as women can begin to take the first step in this action?
I think we do it, We don't necessarily talk about it.
We just do it.
We just do it, I mean, if something needs to be done, we do it. If a friend gets sick, we tend to that friend.
Right.
If we have an idea of a project to get done, you just put a bunch of women together and you see if you don't get it done.
Yep.
I mean, you don't walk around talking about, I'm a torchbearer. You just be it.
Right. You just embody it. Right.
It just is. And that's what I learned with Grandmother and the women on the street, that they just did it, I mean, whatever it was. On Saturdays, it wasn't about, now let's get together and go over and clean the church because we need a nice clean church for Sunday morning. It just happened that as the women were walking down the street, other women would see them walking down the street and they would just join them, and then pretty soon you'd see this army of women going to Mount Zion Baptist Church, where they polished the pews and where they scrubbed the floors and they made sure that everything was absolutely immaculate. I mean, they just did it.
Right.
This is what we saw as children. And so, we weren't sitting there saying, oh, there goes a torchbearer.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm not mocking anything that you say. What I'm just trying to say is, man, the force of women in that role It's just something we have always done.
Yep.
And it's around the world. It's across the world. You look for something to get done, and you get yourself a bunch of women.
Yep. And you get it done. I agree.
Absolutely.
And I've always felt so supported by the power of women coming together collectively towards one cause or many causes, or just helping and supporting and the nurture, the feminine, that powerful feminine.
Absolutely. You get a bunch of women together of one-mindedness, and you got yourself a juggernaut.
So can you tell us a little bit about the evolution of your latest book, The Treason of Mary Levasseur?
Yeah, I can.
I'd love to hear that.
Alex and I were just finishing the second miniseries, Roots, and I was telling him that I wanted to write a book myself about a woman of substance and purpose that I personally connected with. I mean, they're always wonderful women's stories that you can tell. I was looking for something that reminded me really of the energy and force and depth of the women that I grew up with. And it just so happened that Alex's researcher, the man who did the research on Roots, whose name was George Sims, was like a mole in the Library of Congress. That was when you actually could have go into the Carol and have a desk and touch the books and everything. And so Alex had really quested George to see if he could find such a woman for me. Well, it didn't take too long.
Right.
George was quite a ferret. And he found a little squib about this woman named Mary Levasseur. And we had moved on at that time to another project. It seemed like it was always hurry up, with the projects that we were doing. It was just no time to waste. And so I had to take that little bit of information and the excitement that I had about it and put it to the side for a moment. And then it wasn't too long later that George came back with a little more information of the black dispatches of the Civil War. Mary Levasseur was included in that. And so I was able to fly back to Norfolk and actually verify that she did do this thing. She did copy the plans of the refurbished Merrimack that they were turning into an ironclad whose purpose was to be that it was going to power down Hampton Roads and right into Washington, D.C., and be victorious in this war. And Mary did copy those plans and walked them to Washington, got them into the hands of Secretary of the Navy at that time, Gideon Wells, who could actually do something with them. And in so doing, she did help to change the course of the Civil War. But now, can you imagine? Now, I have her in her 40s in my book.
Right.
But she was actually 56 years old.
Wow.
And she walked those plans in the midst of one of the most brutal winters of Virginia history. And not only that, she was pursued by a man who wanted nothing more than to see her dead.
Oh, it takes a lot of courage. Wow, it's just such an incredible story. I actually just purchased it. I can't wait to read it. I haven't read it yet, but I just purchased your book. And what it does for me when you talk about it, first of all, we have a very large following in our community of women in Egypt. And the courage it takes the women in Egypt to share their stories right now in Cairo with the things that are going on. It throughout time, throughout where you're telling these stories to inspire women even in present day to be courageous around the world. That's why I'm drawn to this story right now, because I can relate it to how courageous women there are by just sharing what's going on for them. I mean, it's just amazing.
Oh, yeah, and when you think about the act itself, now here was a woman who had gone from seamstress and was now enjoying the popularity of fashion designer and looking forward to even more notoriety and hopefully her own freedom at some point. And She loved the people who owned her. They were like family because she'd been with them since she was very, very young. And she had her friends and all that. She had the comforts of the big house. And so by deciding to copy these plans, that decision alone made her be alone, because she couldn't tell anybody. If she did, she put other people in jeopardy.
Wow.
She couldn't even show that she was thinking about it, because I was trained for about 3 months by an ex-FBI agent to become a spy. You don't just take an ordinary person and say, okay, now tomorrow you're going to be a spy.
Yeah. Right.
You know, and so training, I never thought about all the kinds of things that you have to hold to yourself once you do something like this. Because he said there are tells on your face, even if you're thinking about it. So you have to be very careful of that. You have to plan. You know, here you are in your nice comfortable bed, and now you have to start thinking, how in the world am I going to survive making a bed off the ground in the middle of winter, you know, when everything is covered with snow? How am I going to survive that? Even if I take off with 2 weeks worth of food, that food is going to run out. How am I going to make it? If I get a stomach ache, what do I take in order to protect myself?
Right.
I mean, all of that, all of these kinds of things that you have to start thinking about. You know, because you're walking 200 miles.
I can't even imagine. Well, I'm really excited to read the story and to be able to really connect it with our history in the U.S. and what she went through. I'm very excited about reading it. And we're going to have it on our website with this interview right next to it, so that if you're listening to this now, you just go on our homepage and click on it, and hopefully we can I love you have a couple of readings on your website about from it, and I'd love to be able to share a couple of those on our site as well, so people can hear, because you are such a beautiful, I mean, it's just your voice and the storytelling from the audio is so beautiful, from the audio, the sound.
For saying that.
Yes,
but
yes.
You know, Kelly, I want to add something more about that. The Civil War is only the backdrop of that book. It is not a Civil War story. That's just the setting.
Good to know.
What it has to do is with relationships.
Okay.
You know, these wonderful relationships she had with the people who were called her owners. The relationships of blacks and whites during that time, the braiding of all kinds of networking that was done that you very rarely talk about. And but if you go back far enough, we're all connected.
Yep.
We're all connected, and we all make up the fabric of America. That's what the book is trying to talk about.
So it's really about you really drill down into deeper relationships. It's not really a historical telling of the Civil War. So, I mean, any woman or man that would be interested in relationships would be interested in this book, because it really does, it sounds like it's more about that than the history.
Exactly. You know, I mean, yeah, it's got drama, comedy, poignancy, sex in there too. You know, I had fun with that part. You know, but you know, it's about who we are as a people.
That's,
you know, and how we connect.
Well, I can't wait to read it. I'm really excited, and really looking forward to digging in, because I loved Roots, and I can't even imagine reading about a courageous woman and what she went through to do this for our country, for the future of our country. So I have one last question that I like to ask everybody that we speak with for our community. What is one token of wisdom you want to share with us about life? Any phrase that you live by, or a few words that you'd like to share if you're imagining women from all over the world listening to you right now?
My mother used to tell me, change your thinking to change your life. Whatever you are thinking, if that is getting in the way of your purpose, your mission, the things that you want to do, change your thinking to change your life.
Okay.
Persevere. persevere. Don't let anybody steal your dream. And if you have to change the wording on that dream every single day to change your thinking, hold on to that dream and make it happen, that's what you do. You don't have to talk about it, just do it.
Just do it and change your thinking to change your life.
Correct.
And persevere. That's a nice mom.
Yeah.
You've got some great history with the women that raised you, it sounds like.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I'm really honored I'm honored to have spoken with you today, and I wish you the best. And I'm looking forward to reading this book and then the series after that as well. Are there any other projects that you have coming up or speak?
Yeah, actually, you caught me. Tomorrow we leave out for the next book tour, the Florida book tour, and on this book tour I'll be participating in a program called the Day Workers Brigade.
Oh, okay.
They're actually going to, they've already interviewed me about grandmother and what she did in her relationship with her contentious relationship with this woman that she worked with for 30 years.
Wow.
And how they ended up together. What it is a wonderful love story, at bottom. Mm-hmm. And then I just finished writing a 90-minute one-man show about Alex called Chapters in a Life that we're looking to produce. And
well, you are a creator, definitely, and a creative soul, creative human being. And
I don't let any flies land, that's for sure.
Well, I thank you again for speaking with me, and I truly appreciate all the work you've done for all of humanity and all of the world, and especially our country.
Well, thank you. And thank you for all of your kind words, and thank you for an opportunity to be on your show. I loved it.
All right. Well, good luck, and we hope to hear from you again soon.
All right.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.